What is the novelty of your topic? Why? Why do we have to research it? How is it new? How is it different? What does it bring to this society? Is it outstanding enough? Yes, these are all the questions people who were exposed to academia know very well about. Coming from Ukrainian culture and also learning in China, what I learned most is that we were taught to be constantly outstanding. You are either the best or you are a failure. If you're writing a composition, it has to be the best. If you are writing even the most boring topic, you have to cover it in a way that will capture people from the first moment. If you're writing a composition, you always have to outline pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages. You have to always analyze the thing. So even if it's a perfect thing in this life, it will always have negative sides and you have to notice them. I still live like this in this life. My friends constantly tell me that I'm negative, but guys, I just use the methods we were taught in school. I can always find negative things, even in the most beautiful ones. Some of my friends really hate it, and I know that it's just an excuse. I'm probably the one who always can see negative things, but it's not necessarily because I apply the methods, but it's also because of my personality. Of course, I think that those things such as education will definitely change us a lot as well. And Ukrainian education is hardcore. Talking about Chinese, I will not even mention anything about that. It is extremely hardcore. What's the novelty? Why is it so special? Why do you need to research exactly this topic? Seems like since school and university, I don't know about you guys, but I studied in Ukraine and China. We were constantly told to be the best, to excel. The questions I asked, anyone who was exposed to academia knows very well that these are the questions pertaining to your thesis. Because if you are choosing a topic for thesis, first of all, it has to be extremely new. Nobody else should research this particular field or whatever you chose. You have to prove the novelty. You have to prove that your thesis is actually useful. You have to constantly prove everything, anything to everyone and anyone. That can be tiring. Even in school, I know that usually when you go to school in North America, it's not extremely difficult from what I understand. For example, in my country, when we were attending various language classes, it can be Ukrainian language or maybe English language, and we were taught to write a composition. There are various structures, but the most important one was where you have an introduction, pros, cons, and conclusion. So in everything we do, we had to see beautiful and negative sides of any topic you would cover. But another important topic we were constantly mentioned is that no matter what you write about, it can be the most boring and the most basic thing in life. It has to be written in an extremely captivating, mesmerizing, capturing way. Because nobody likes boring stuff. If it's boring, it basically means your composition failed. To sum it up, you are constantly taught to prove yourself. And it seems that we are taught that mediocre, boring are not the best things to have in this life. And yes, on the one hand, I do appreciate that our teachers didn't tell us that you absolutely cannot cover some daily mundane topic, but it had to be covered in this specific, unique way that actually still is interesting. The moral of the story, you have to be an outstanding personality in no matter what you do, in no matter where you are, no matter who you are talking to. But before coming to Canada, I actually researched, and what I did find out, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I found out that here people are trying to be not extremely different from others. So basically, it is encouraged to not try to be better than others and just to be mediocre. This is an interesting perspective, and it really shows me how cultures are indeed different around the world. And I definitely can see how it impacts people's lives. Actually, from what I experienced and from what I observed during my 27 years of life on this planet, I did see that sometimes being mundane or be the same as others is not so bad. When we talk, for example, about influencers, you either can captivate somebody by being extreme, like having something that basically nobody has, this extremely certain lifestyle, or experiencing or going to some places that nobody can ever do, then you can captivate the audience. Or actually, just like for example, let's take a look at Amber Chamberlain. Why was she so successful? First of all, of course, the personality, amazing, beautiful, warm personality, but at the same time, the relatability, right? She didn't show you anything that you couldn't have in your life. She didn't tell you about things that you didn't think in your life. It's actually showing that you are the same that can help you in life, because help you to find your community and even succeed in life, because look at it. She's now a very famous personality, and all this thanks to actually being relatable and being the same with others. This is actually something that transitioned her to the position where now she is not the same as others. That cultural background, education, these things definitely shape your personality. And for example, in my life, I often think that no matter what I do, it has to be, first of all, perfect, because there is a huge competition. But second of all, it has to be unique. It has to be different. If you are sharing something, it has to be something that nobody else talked about. And it's not that nobody else talked about this topic, but what I'm trying to say is sometimes it becomes tiring because you constantly try to dig into something and then share this topic from a different maybe perspective or in a different way, and just to be different. But as I said, it actually takes much more energy than actually trying to do something more simple, something more mundane, and that actually can bring even quicker results. We are often taught that learn to fail, be ready to fail. It's okay to fail. Failure means that you are on the way to success. Well, and that's absolutely true, but somehow we are afraid of it, and sometimes ashamed, and sometimes embarrassed of it. And I do think that it's one of the ways when people actually sit in their comfort zone. I've seen a lot of people actually relatively or rather successful in their lives. But when I see about what they do, they don't really improve a lot, or they don't really change, because they do something that already has a proven record of bringing them a certain amount of results, which means they don't really try to go out from the comfort zone, and they don't really try to think outside the box. Because why? If you think outside the box in this particular situation, you can lose. But if you continue doing something that has a proven record, you will still see results and you will have this stability. And this is, I think, what divides people. Some are ready to take risks, to be different, to probably experiment, while others sticking to what they've been doing for a long time. And you know what? Very often the latter actually are very successful. It's not because they are better. It's just because of the strategy, and it's about your choice in life. I know people who made a choice that is not the easiest in life, and they could easily switch to something else. But as I said, it's up to you, because it also reflects your values, I would say. You know, sometimes I was regretting choosing the maybe not the easiest path. For example, choosing first of all humanities as a major, and I think it is a great major. Well, it's as a fairy tale as the story goes. Usually people have very big difficulties after graduating from humanities majors, and that is true, especially if you also decide to change the country. Then it's a double problem, let's put it this way. Sometimes I think, okay, I chose this, the most difficult language, one of the most difficult languages in the world, and it seems you put so much effort in it, like 10 years of your life. But some people who are doing much easier things see better results, and sometimes I do start thinking, well, did I do something wrong? But then I think, no, I didn't, because this choice showed me something that I would probably never do. As a European person coming from Ukraine, actually the first country, the first abroad for me was China, which is very interesting. And I do appreciate that, because at that time I was still very young, and you know, it opened up so many things for me and showed me how the world can truly be different. And this also fueled me to work more and to try to travel more. And from this perspective, I'm very happy. Maybe for some things that were more easily achievable for others, I had to put in much more effort. But on the other hand, you always have to like zoom out. I noticed that when you are stuck in this tunnel vision and concentrated only on the problem that is in front of you, you very often have difficulty zooming out and trying to see the bigger picture. So every time I am getting into this sad, depressed, overthinking mode, I would just tell myself, see the bigger picture, zoom out. And guys, it works very well. We all have a different starting point in this life. We all have different resources. So comparing is literally useless. Compare only to yourself. Did you become smarter? Did you read something useful? Did you learn something new from comparing to your previous self? Did you master some skills? Did you become more disciplined? Or did you manage to have a good rest? Did you manage to know how to take breaks? Did you manage to know what it is work-life balance? All these things, but only compare it to yourself. I don't want to lie, I do have this problem when I compare myself to other people. And of course you will always lose, because there's, as you may know, always somebody better. But you also may understand that the people's situations are absolutely different. It's all about reference point. I remember Tyler, the creator, was actually talking about the reference point, and I know that it would be better if I referenced some kind of philosopher, but why not? I just think that it is very useful, and probably maybe this is something that helped him in life to succeed. I might start comparing myself, for example, to famous influencers and thinking, but come on, they are doing this boring and basic content. I'm trying to share more information or share some knowledge, and why is it so unfair? And it's just my example. I bet we are all stuck in those vicious circles when we sometimes start comparing, thinking, why? That the world is unfair. Okay, that is true, maybe in some ways. The world is unfair, that's true. But what about the reference point? Because then I'm telling myself, but there is this 20-year-old boy, which is even younger than me, and he is currently on the battlefield. And he probably smarter than me. I know that a lot of them are engineers, software engineers, people with very good higher education, people with purpose in life, handsome, beautiful personalities. And some of them are on the battlefield in Ukraine, yes, and it's winter. And he's probably lying down in trench, and he can get killed any moment, how thousands of them already been. And he also doesn't deserve it, right? But he doesn't blame anything. He's just doing what he thinks is the right thing. The thing I learned in this life is, first of all, we do make choices, and we have to be aware of what consequences they may bring to our life. But hey, it's also about realizing that we have to deal with what we have. We all have a certain amount of resources. We all have our own starting point. And the best thing that we can do is just analyze it and do what we can do with what we are having. This comparing will not bring anywhere, as we may all know. That's very interesting because the topic of this video was failure and imperfection. And life isn't perfect, and that's the point of it. Or maybe it is perfect, because I noticed that all these hardships or the things we probably hate in our life actually bring us to the end point that is very satisfactory to us. So I noticed when you are pushing something too hard, but it just doesn't seem to go your way, I do believe that sometimes life comes and try to correct your trajectory. And sometimes all we can do is just stop holding on to all those things and see what rises. I don't remember exactly, but it's the same as in swimming. When you are getting into some strong current, if you start swimming against it, you will get nowhere. You will probably just get exhausted and drown. But if you actually try to go in the same way as the current, you have a chance of survival. So sometimes being conformist in this life is not a bad thing. You can conform with the situation, and it would not mean that you lost. It would just mean that you are working on the solutions and you are actually trying external factors to bring in maybe some new perspectives. I talked a lot about different things, but I think the essence of this video is to actually understand what you are okay in this life. There is nothing wrong or right. I think it's up to you and it's your choice, because sometimes choosing to be different or doing things maybe not as they are always done in this world may complicate your life. And this is absolutely fine. Let me just tell you a recent story. I really wanted to go somewhere warm during the winter break here in Canada because it's extremely cold. And I did decide to go to Florida. And you know what? I was thinking that it will be this amazing, perfect trip. I cut out 5 days for it, which is a pretty long period of time, especially for me, for doing nothing, because the goal of the trip was actually to go and do nothing. This is something I'm trying to do and to learn in this life, because when I'm here at home, I'm constantly busy with doing anything. It's like seems my brain cannot relax. It's either work and then is the gym, and if I have a spare moment, it's either I need to read something or I need to learn something or I need to make a video, and it's happening non-stop, which is apparently, you may understand, is relatively draining. So yes, we decided to go to Florida and enjoy this amazing trip, but you know what, things just didn't turn out as they were supposed to be, and this a perfect planned trip turned out to be very imperfect. The weather was very cold. It just happened that during that period of time, somehow there was this very strong wind, and usually I know the winters are warmer, but you see, life is unpredictable. Life brings its own corrections and changes. So basically, among all the 5 days, I was able to swim only once, and I wouldn't tell you that it was actually very warm to swim. I just did it because I knew that I have to do it. And it was the right decision, because all the upcoming days were way too cold for swimming. And I didn't even bring warm clothes, enough of warm clothes, so it was freezing most of the time. For example, if you go outside, it's like after 3 it's already cold. So you know, you have a lot of time. Fort Lauderdale has some parks and anything, but mostly it's about restaurants, and my goal of going there was to actually spend all the days at the beach, enjoying the beautiful sun and just having this very slow life. And you see, it changed. It wasn't as I planned. It was imperfect. I even called it a failure. But was it a failure? In my view, it wasn't. It was my first time in the Florida state. It was my first time seeing a new city. It was my first time seeing a peacock walking outside just in the residential area. It was my first time seeing very huge, beautiful owls. So you see, it's like, was it a failure from that perspective, from my expectations? Maybe there was. Was it a failure on the other perspective, in terms of learning, in terms of finding out new things? Actually, leaving your box. It wasn't. And I love it. And that's what it is. Sometimes imperfect things bring to us learning and improvements and change of mind, and they form us as a new person. I also did my research. I know now that I have to maybe do even more thorough research or include some other things and fluctuations in my calculations to understand that things may go wrong, and to understand if that particular fluctuation would be okay with me or not. It's all about learning. Oh my gosh, the sun is so strong. But by telling you about this trip, I just wanted to say that I don't think there is such a thing as failure. Because if you are going to the Olympics and you spend years of your life preparing, and then yes, you didn't achieve the result you wanted to achieve, is it a failure? I don't think so. You are already the strongest person in your nation. You are already the one who spent so much effort that many people in their lives cannot even imagine. You didn't achieve your result. You may be a failure on that scale you set for yourself. But is it true? No, it's not. You are not a failure. You are just on your way to success. And let's be honest, it's possible that you will never win that Olympic medal. And I would still not call this failure, to be honest, because failure is, for me, only one thing. When you want something, but you don't do anything to achieve it, then it's a failure. Yes, such thing exists. But if you put in effort every day, a little bit, if you learn, if you master yourself, guys, it's not a failure. It's like, recently I was watching this documentary about gut health and how even this detail can change many things in your life, because they impact your mood, they impact if you have predisposition to be overweight or not. So every time we look at people and try to compare ourselves, we somehow tend to forget that even the smallest cell in your body can bring the difference, and it means that every story is different. It's just impossible to replicate somebody's success, because you never know what actually factored in to bring that success. But what is possible is to, I think, mostly be clear what you are okay with. in this life. I was taught in school that if you put in a lot of effort and you work hard, you get the results. It's like, you have a good mark, you graduate from university with great GPA, you pass your exams very well, you go to university. But then when I got into adult life, I realized that working hard is sometimes not enough. And there are many other things as luck and just too many things that you cannot actually impact. You just have to love something enough to understand that you probably may or may not achieve the results you really want, but if you're ready for that, you can pursue that.